A while back, I made a video titled on why it would be hard to make a new Batman game. Today, I kind of want to revisit this idea, but I think that there have been some new things that I want to talk about since I last made that video, because it's been definitely over a year at this point since I've made that video. So today, I want to be talking about reasons why it would be hard to make a new Batman game, because I think there's a few different things you can go over. Of course, with any sort of game, there's going to be pros and cons. There's going to be things people love about the game, and there's going to be things that people don't like about the game. And that's just part of how it is sometimes. And before I get into this, I just want to clarify, I'm not talking about a new Batman Arkham game, because we literally just saw with Batman Arkham Shadow that can absolutely be done, right? The Batman Arkham series as a title is always going to hold some type of value, and those types of games are always going to do very well in the sales department, and even perceived very well by the public in general, so long as it has a somewhat decent story to go along with it. But I'm not talking about the Arkham series in this video. No, no, no. I'm talking about starting a new iteration from scratch, kind of like what Batman the Telltale series did, but on a bit of a larger scale with, open world, better gameplay, similar to the Arkham series, just in a new iteration. And if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a thumbs up, make sure to subscribe for more content, and without wasting any more of your time, let's get into why it could be hard to make a new Batman game. First and foremost, probably one of the more obvious things that I just want to get out of the way is simply due to how good video games have become, right? You talk graphically, you talk about in terms of combat, how good storytelling has actually become over the years, how we've seen so many ideas and everything come in various types of medias, that in order to live up to that sort of standard, you would have a lot of pressure on you to make an elite level Batman story. Otherwise, I think it would be perceived as kind of Like, I'll give you an example here, right? Suicide Squad, right? That game graphically was very beautiful. I love the world design in that game. I thought it was very, very well done. Even the combat was alright in some places. A bit repetitive and a bit boring, just getting slightly more difficult. But honestly, it wasn't really that bad. It wasn't the worst combat system in the world. But you take a look at the story, and everybody freaking hates the game. I understand that graphics and gameplay are a massive part of it in any sort of superhero game in particular. But the gameplay is not necessarily as important as the overall story. If you don't have a compelling story, then you don't have anything to work with. So writing a very, very good story, an original story in a Batman type of genre, could be extremely difficult because most things that you can think of, who will be the main antagonist, the setting, all those sorts of things, something along the lines of whatever ideas you may have already been done, rinsed, and repeated to a certain extent. And if you look at another example, Gotham Knights was a game that kind of got mixed reviews, but I think a lot of it was kind of more disappointed because of the gameplay and the mediocre graphics in comparison to something like Batman Arkham Knight. But, like I mentioned before, it's because nowadays, video games, the graphics and the gameplay are just so good that it's kind of exceeded, 10, 15 years ago. We're no longer in the era of mediocre graphics being acceptable. It now has to be elite level graphics. And that's just the problem. When you got games like GTA 6 on the way, the standard's only going to keep increasing, and that does create more pressure to create a top level and top notch overall video game experience. And something else to point out that I think a lot of people are going to do this probably unintentionally, but it's something that people are always going to do regardless of whether you think it or speak it out loud, simply due to the fact that any time a new Batman media is going to get released, to some sort of extent, it's going to get compared to the Batman Arkham series, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? Because this is kind of the base for Batman games. So I can't necessarily fault people for wanting to make that original comparison. However, if there's even a slight flaw in a video game, in a new Batman game, immediately, the Batman Arkham series didn't have this issue, and so it's always going to be looked upon as worse. But the reality is, the Batman Arkham series was so far ahead of its time. You look at Arkham Asylum made in 2009, Arkham City, everyone's favorite Batman Arkham game, was made in 2011, right? These games were just too far ahead of its time for its own friggin' good. Because now, we're at a point where any sort of new Batman story that comes out, it's immediately going to be compared to the Batman Arkham series, and Anything that falls slightly short of that is going to be ridiculed, called garbage, right? Let me ask you guys a quick question, and I want you guys to actually think about this before you actually say anything out loud, or go down to the comments section and freak out on me. If the Batman Arkham franchise didn't exist, right? No Arkham Asylum, City, Origins, Knight. If we didn't have those 4 games, would you hate Suicide Squad as much? Would you hate Gotham Knights as much? Now, granted, Suicide Squad takes place in the Arkham universe. However, that doesn't mean that the Suicide Squad game could not have taken place without it. It could have just been some random iteration of Batman, right? And it could have been nothing more than that, and it wouldn't have changed that sort of game whatsoever. But you look at something like Gotham Knights, I don't think Gotham Knights would be hated as much if the Arkham series didn't exist. And this is a point that I've made for a long time. However, I do think that some people claim they would still dislike it just as much. I beg to differ. I think a lot more people would not only love that game, but I think a lot of people might even look at it as a DC superhero masterpiece. Right, because you have to imagine, right? No Batman Arkham series, nobody invents the free flow combat system. So, if Gotham Knights had been the game to invent that, then that game would have been regarded as like the greatest superhero video game of all time. Now, granted, there is Spider-Man, and that game did follow the free flow combat system as well. But if the Arkham series didn't create it, there's a potential that that Spider-Man game doesn't exist, and that Spider-Man never came out to begin with because they just didn't have a good combat system to go along with their game. And the last point I want to make is, out of respect for a legend, multiple legends even that you could say on several characters of this franchise, and not just this franchise, but Batman the Animated Series, right? Kevin Conroy, I've made this point before that I don't want there to be like new Batman Arkham games, specifically one that takes place after Arkham Knight. Just out of respect for Kevin Conroy, he played that character, and he deserves to be known as the guy who played that character, and let him just rest with that character in his heart, if you can kind of get what I'm saying here. So I think that no matter what, if you start a new franchise, a new Batman, someone that isn't Kevin Conroy, it's not Mark Hamill playing as the Joker, it's not Arlene Sorkin playing as Harley Quinn, even though she only played Harley Quinn in Arkham Asylum. She didn't play her in City, Origins, or Knight, I believe. But let me know if I'm wrong on that one down in the comments, but I don't think I am on that one. But if you don't have those 3 playing as Harley Quinn, Batman, and Joker, then I think a lot of people are going to be upset that, like, hey, like, these people don't measure up to Kevin Conroy just because of how much of a legend he was. Arlene Sorkin was one of the best Harley Quinns, if not the best Harley Quinn of all time. And while Mark Hamill is still alive, I'm sure he probably does not want to continue playing roles of the Joker for the rest of his life. So I can only imagine that no matter how good of a job the voice actors do, you know, freaking Roger Craig Smith did an amazing job playing as Batman in both his games. But he's not regarded as good as freaking Kevin Conroy just because of how much of a legend he is and how he played the character for 30 years. But guys, this is why I think it could potentially be hard to make a new Batman game. But I will say there's probably is a lot more evidence on the flip side that making a new Batman game could be very successful, because a lot of people know about Batman, myself included, through the Arkham franchise, and didn't even get into this character until the Batman Arkham series. So we only have this series to thank for that. And I believe that with a new franchise could create some new learning opportunities. And there's many other reasons why, you know, making a new Batman game could become very successful. And I will make a video talking about that one as well. But I wanted to go over this one today because it's an interesting thought that there might be limiting factors as to why it might be harder to make a new Batman game. So let me know what your guys' thoughts down in the comments below. What would be the hardest part about making a new Batman game in this day and age? Not in the Arkham franchise, just for preference. What would be hard about not making, or what would be hard about making a new Batman game that was not in the Arkham franchise? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed, make sure to leave a thumbs up, make sure to subscribe for more content, and make sure to hit that notification bell so you get all notifications for when I upload. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace!